Qu'est-ce que vous faites? C'est lui! C'est lui! Mais c'est Joe!
Are you insane? Everybody's dead.
Take it easy. Just take it easy and we'll bring you home.
Are you like me? The first time I watched 3 Days of the Condor, I thought it was just an intellectual spy film. The kind of movie adults watch and then forget. No loud action, no dramatic climaxes. Robert Redford walks through New York in his familiar coat. The pacing is slow. The city keeps functioning as usual. It looks safe, too ordinary to be frightening. But as I grew older and watched 3 Days of the Condor again, I realised that sense of safety was just an illusion. Behind Redford's slow steps and the film's measured pacing lay a tense set where Cliff Robertson clashed fiercely with director Sidney Pollack. A CIA that flatly refused to support the film, calling the script too dangerous. And even the rooftop chase where Redford's visible fear wasn't acting but a moment he faced the heights himself with no stunt double, no safety harness. And today we're reopening the behind the scenes of 3 Days of the Condor 1975. 20. Cliff Robertson argued with Sidney Pollack behind the scenes.
Boy, what is it with you people? You think not getting caught in a lie is the same thing as telling the truth?
No. It's simple economics.
On screen, Higgins embodies CIA authority reserved rigid saying, little but every line carries weight. Behind the camera, the atmosphere was no less tense. Cliff Robertson and director Sidney Pollack repeatedly disagreed over how the character should be shaped. Robertson wanted Higgins to be dry bureaucratic, almost emotionless. Pollack, on the other hand, wanted to add a layer of subtle menace, a kind of power that doesn't need to raise its voice to inspire fear. At one point, the argument escalated to the extent that Robertson walked off the set entirely, bringing filming to a halt for hours. Crew members later recalled that whenever the two men were in the same room, the air immediately grew heavy and everyone became cautious. Ironically, it was precisely this friction that forged Higgins as seen on screen. The character's coldness, abruptness, and sense of being non-negotiable did not come entirely from performance, but from genuine resentment. The mistrust between the two men behind the lens was directly reflected in the relationship on film. As a result, Higgins's final speech about national security does not sound like scripted dialogue, but like a justification spoken from the speaker's own rigid and frightening conviction. 19. The CIA refused to provide support because the film was too dangerous.
Hello, Condor.
Who is this?
Deputy Director Higgins, New York Center. I'm controlling now, Condor. Where are you?
How come I need a code name and you don't?
There is a detail that very few audiences at the time knew. When the filmmakers sent the script to Langley to request technical assistance, the door was slammed shut. The CIA flatly refused, not because of budget constraints or scheduling conflicts, but because the film's content went too far beyond what the agency was willing to accept being shown on screen. In the script, the CIA was not portrayed as an organization protecting America through difficult but necessary decisions, but as a cold machine willing to sacrifice its own people, manipulate information, and cover up mistakes for strategic interests. This ran completely counter to the image of soft cooperation that the CIA typically allowed Hollywood to depict, where the intelligence agency is seen as the last line of defense, even if it sometimes has to do unsavory things. A former production consultant later recalled, "They were very clear. This film makes the public ask the wrong questions about us." To today's audiences, that may sound familiar. But in America of the 1970s, fresh from Vietnam and Watergate, it was a red line. Without CIA support, the filmmakers were forced to research on their own stage everything themselves and rely on their own assumptions. And it was precisely this lack of oversight that gave the film its weight. It posed a question that many people at the time found uncomfortable. What if the system created to protect you turns its back on you? 18. Redford performed the rooftop stunt himself and the fear was real.
Use whatever it requires, but end it.
Do you remember the scene where Joe Turner gasps for breath, clinging to the edge of a Manhattan rooftop in the freezing cold, slipping step by step over open air? That moment was not polished with visual effects. In this iconic chase scene, the studio wanted to use a stunt double. Robert Redford refused. He believed the audience had to see him in danger, otherwise the fear would be fake. The crew set up only minimal safety measures. The rooftop was slick with winter ice. The wind cut into the skin. Breath turned to steam right in front of the camera. Redford still jumped, still ran, still hung from the roof's edge, no green screen, no compositing. Cinematographers later admitted they were genuinely terrified. Not because the scene was technically difficult, but because a single misstep would have meant disaster. The slight camera shake, the uneven, ragged breathing, all of it remained in the final cut. 17. The crew feared a real attack during filming.
With the Kirkus report, this...
There is one detail that director Sidney Pollack himself later acknowledged in interviews. The crew at times suspected they were being genuinely surveilled. Making a film about a CIA conspiracy in the middle of 1970s Manhattan meant placing themselves squarely in a moment when America was still haunted by Watergate wiretapping and internal espionage. During many location shoots, crew members repeatedly noticed unmarked cars parked in the same spots for hours at a time, along with unfamiliar individuals standing at a distance watching through binoculars. No one knew who they were, police-curious civilians, or something else entirely. Pollack later said there were moments when he wondered whether a real agency was checking in on what the production was doing. One night shoot was even interrupted when local police demanded questioning because a production truck was parked too close to a government building. The line between film and real life became frighteningly blurred. For the actors, that feeling was both unsettling and strangely appropriate. Robert Redford put it bluntly. We didn't need to act the feeling of being watched. We were living in it, and that very real tension seeped directly into every frame of the film. 16. The assassin was built on a real-life killer. Do you remember the scene of the white-haired man slowly entering the room, letting his men gun everyone down, then calmly lighting a cigarette? That is Joubert the assassin, played by Max von Sydow. One of the most chilling figures in the film, precisely because he does not resemble a typical on-screen murderer. What few people know is that Joubert was not purely fictional. Sidney Pollack asked that the character be constructed loosely but deliberately from dossiers on European mercenaries operating during the Cold War, men selected for their ability to blend seamlessly into polite society. No tattoos, no aggression, no excess emotion. They wore suits, spoke multiple languages, dined in upscale restaurants, and then disappeared after completing their assignments. Von Sydow studied real political assassinations in Paris and Geneva, paying particular attention to one detail: the most dangerous people were always the least noticeable. As a result, Joubert does not threaten or boast. He is polite to a frightening degree. 15. Redford insisted on rewriting his own character.
7 people killed, and you play games.
And the other side does too.
When he accepted the script for 3 Days of the Condor, Robert Redford did not want to simply step into the frame and do exactly what was written. In the original novel, Joe Turner is a relatively straightforward analyst caught in a crisis and trying to survive. For Redford, that was not enough. He wanted Turner to be a person cracking from the inside, intelligent and sensitive, but gradually pushed into a state of doubt and paranoia. Redford repeatedly discussed and even applied pressure on Sidney Pollack to adjust the script. adding moments of silence, suspicious glances, and especially an implicit questioning of American power structures. What mattered most was this: that political bitterness was not in the original draft. It directly reflected Redford's own awareness in the post-Vietnam and Watergate context, a period when trust in the government was collapsing. Pollock later admitted that Redford brought a moral compass into the film, forcing the story to go beyond a simple chase. 14. Faye Dunaway hated the original character arc.
I'll need your help.
Have I ever denied you anything? I don't think you're gonna live much longer.
Well, I may surprise you.
Do you remember the scene of the woman standing silently by the window? The camera held low, her eyes not looking at Joe Turner, but straight into her own unease. That moment was never planned in the script. After the massive success of Chinatown, Faye Dunaway approached the 3 days of the Condor script with caution. The early version irritated her. Kathy Hale was written as a passive woman pulled into a conspiracy by Robert Redford's Joe Turner and then simply existing to fill scenes. Dunaway told director Sidney Pollock directly that she would not accept playing a background prop with a face. The debate was tense. Dunaway did not ask for more dialogue, nor did she want to turn Kathy into an action heroine. What she wanted was an inner life, the confusion, fear, and alertness of an ordinary person dragged into the world of espionage. Pollock listened and allowed her to intervene directly in shaping the character. It was Dunaway who proposed the series of photography scenes, Kathy observing the world through a lens both controlling distance and protecting herself. Those quiet, static moments created psychological depth that the original script lacked, and later became some of the film's most memorable scenes. 13. The winter shoot nearly broke the cast.
2 years military service, separated 961, worked at Bell Labs Communication Research College on the GI Bill.
The film's cold appearance was not a visual technique, it was real shooting conditions. 3 Days of the Condor was filmed in Manhattan during the harsh winter months of the early 1970s, with temperatures frequently dropping below freezing. According to Paramount production records and crew recollections, many shoots had to be halted because camera lenses froze and camera batteries drained power too quickly. Director Sidney Pollock deliberately refused more comfortable solutions such as warm interior sets or reducing exterior shooting time. He wanted the cold to be present in the performances. Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway had to run stand and deliver dialogue outdoors while their limbs went numb and their breath was clearly visible on camera. Redford later admitted in interviews that the exhaustion and weather-induced stress seeped directly into the character, allowing him to avoid having to act the feeling of disorientation. Snowstorms extended the shooting schedule and placed heavy pressure on the studio, but Pollock refused to change course. The result was a coldness, not only of weather, but of psychology, paranoia, isolation, and unease created from the cast's real physical endurance in front of the camera. 12. The book became 3 Days for a Darker Reason.
Yes?
Or else what?
Mr. Higgins?
This Condor isn't the man his file says he is.
Then where did he learn evasive moves?
He reads.
James Grady's original novel was titled 6 Days of the Condor, but when Sidney Pollock adapted it for the screen, he cut the timeline in half down to just 3 days. The reason was not to make the title shorter. Pollock was very direct. He did not believe that an ordinary CIA analyst with no combat training could be hunted continuously and still survive for 6 days. 3 days was barely believable. 6 days was not. This decision completely changed the story's emotional weight. Turner no longer has time for extended reflection or elaborate planning. He has only a few dozen hours to run hide and try to understand why he is about to be killed. Every mistake carries an immediate cost. What audiences often overlook is that shortening the timeline made the film far more frightening. This is not a prolonged battle of wits, it is a countdown. Every scene that passes is one step closer to death. 11. The film accidentally predicted CIA scandals.
Are you damaged?
Damaged? No. Are you armed?
Identify the armament.
It's a .45 automatic. Will you guys bring me in, please?
Do you remember the scene where Turner sits alone in a small room, listening to the phone ring again and again, slowly realizing that the very organization he serves is now hunting him? Did that moment leave an impression on you? When that scene appeared on screen in 1975, many viewers assumed it was just Hollywood exaggeration. But only months later, fiction began to collide with reality in a disturbing way. When 3 Days of the Condor was released, the idea that the CIA might assassinate its own personnel to cover up a secret project was still widely considered implausible. Then, the Church Committee hearings erupted, exposing a series of shocking truths about the Central Intelligence Agency, illegal surveillance of American citizens, covert assassination programs abroad, and operations concealed even from Congress. Suddenly, the film no longer felt like an imagined thriller. It felt like an unpublished draft of history. Sidney Pollack himself later admitted that he was stunned while watching the hearings unfold. "We thought we were exaggerating. Then reality proved that we weren't." 10. The iconic ending was a last-minute rewrite.
You're about to be a very lonely man. It didn't have to end this way.
Of course it did.
The final scene of 3 Days of the Condor has become legendary. Joe Turner stands outside the New York Times building, believing the truth has finally been exposed when Higgins returns with a line that sends a chill down the spine. What if they don't print it? Few people realize that this was not the original ending. In early drafts, the story concluded far more neatly. Turner hands over the documents, the villains are exposed, and everything closes according to the familiar formula of a thriller from that era. But as editing neared completion, both Sidney Pollack and Robert Redford felt that something was wrong. It was too easy, too reassuring. Just weeks before locking the final cut, they decided to rewrite and shoot the newsroom scene. It was a risky move. Paramount worried that audiences would leave the theatre feeling unsettled, unsatisfied. But Pollack insisted on keeping that final question because it captured the film's true spirit: truth does not protect itself, and power rarely disappears simply because it has been exposed. 9. The fake CIA office was real enough to fool passers-by. Was this one of the most unsettling scenes for you? The massacre at Turner's CIA front office disguised as a literary society in Manhattan. What's more striking is that the set design was so convincing that employees in nearby offices believed it was a real government building. Paramount rented an ordinary New York townhouse and filled it with books, filing cabinets, and encryption equipment. Pedestrians passing by assumed it was just another federal office. The film crew joked that the set was so persuasive they were only waiting for the day a real agent would walk in. And according to anecdote, that day actually came. An unannounced visitor arrived, asked far too many questions, and then left without explanation. It wasn't just set decoration, it was a mirror of Cold War secrecy hidden in plain sight in the middle of everyday life. 8. A love scene constructed like a kidnapping.
I'll need your help.
Have I ever denied you anything? I don't think you're gonna live much longer.
Well, I may surprise you.
The scene in which Turner and Kathy sleep together was never staged as a classic romantic moment. Sidney Pollack deliberately filmed it with a slow rhythm, prolonged silences, and uncomfortable gaps. Turner does not court Kathy, he occupies her space. The camera keeps its distance, not caressing the characters, but observing them, as if watching a dangerous situation with an uncertain outcome. Pollack said he did not want the audience to feel safe in any relationship in the film. Even love had to carry a sense of coercion and imbalance of power. Turner needs Kathy to survive. Kathy fears Turner but cannot escape him. This is not romance, it is a compromise made for survival. This approach is precisely why the scene has remained controversial for decades. But it also honestly reflects the spirit of Condor in a world where no one can be trusted. Even intimacy carries the scent of danger. If that scene felt off to you, then you were feeling exactly what the film intended to convey. 7. Turner is a real analyst, and the film never allows him to become an action hero. Joseph Turner, in 3 Days of the Condor, is written and portrayed as someone who lives by his mind, not his muscles. He has no exceptional combat skills and none of the bearing of a formally trained field agent. The only thing Turner does well is read and connect seemingly harmless details into a terrifying picture. Robert Redford deliberately played the character as intelligently passive. Every time Turner runs, it is not a display of prowess, but a calculated panic. He stumbles, mistimes his movements, and is slower than his pursuers. Even when he fires a gun, Turner never looks like someone in control of the situation. He is simply trying to survive a few seconds longer. This approach ran completely against the spy films of the same era. Turner does not win through strength or grand strategy, but through understanding the system and realizing that the system is willing to devour the very people who serve it. The real terror of Condor lies here. If someone who merely thinks for a living like Turner can become a target for erasure, then no one is truly safe. 6. We will still be here with you when you are gone.
It would happen this way. You may be walking. Maybe the first sunny day of the spring.
That rooftop moment in 3 Days of the Condor needs no music, no elaborate editing. Only Joubert standing still and speaking. Turner is gasping for breath. The city stretches out behind them, and then the line drops cold as metal. We exist because of small wars. When there are no more wars, we will create them. The scene lingers not because of action, but because of prophecy. Joubert is not threatening Turner. He is lecturing him like someone who has seen too many cycles of power to still believe in morality. The camera holds a medium distance, never pushing in, giving the words space to resonate. Joubert does not need to move closer to Turner. It is his ideology that closes in. These lines were not in the original script. Max von Sydow proposed them after reading about mercenaries operating across borders in Africa, men who belonged to no nation, loyal only to survival within chaos. Sidney Pollack immediately understood the weight of the idea and almost completely stepped back as a director. He let von Sydow speak, let Redford listen, and let the audience be left suspended between those two worlds. 5. A Warren Beatty version once existed, then disappeared. Before audiences came to know Robert Redford, in 3 Days of the Condor, the film had a different leading man, Warren Beatty. Producer Dino De Laurentiis originally chose Beatty for the lead role with Peter Yates attached as director. On paper, the project looked strong, but once discussions began, things quickly went off track. The problem lay in differing visions of the film. Beatty wanted to push the story in a heavily political direction, sharp and confrontational toward power. Yates, on the other hand, wanted a tight, fast-paced thriller focused on chases and surface-level tension. The two approaches were too far apart. Neither side was willing to compromise. The project was delayed. Meetings dragged on and ultimately led nowhere. Eventually, De Laurentiis shelved the script for several months before deciding to cancel this version entirely. Only afterward did Redford and Sidney Pollack enter the picture. They already understood each other, argued less, and quickly agreed on a new direction. Not overt political sloganeering, but dark enough to leave audiences deeply uneasy. The result was the film we know today, not a loud manifesto, but a slow-burning paranoia, restrained, unsettling, and far more frightening. 4. The film unintentionally became a training manual for the KGB. Hollywood thrillers usually stop at entertainment. But 3 Days of the Condor was different. According to various records and later recollections by former intelligence officials from the Cold War era, the film was taken very seriously by KGB analysts, not as entertainment, but as a learning tool. What caught their attention was not the chase sequences, but the film's central idea, a CIA analysis unit whose job is to read and cross-reference publicly available materials, books, newspapers, magazines, technical publications to uncover hidden patterns others overlook. In the film, this idea leads to catastrophe. In real life, Soviet intelligence saw it as an opportunity. Later sources indicated that the KGB adopted a similar concept, building open-source intelligence units and systematizing the reading and connection of public information. The idea was simple but dangerous. Major secrets sometimes do not reside in classified documents, but are scattered in plain sight, lacking only someone to piece them together. The irony is, this a deeply skeptical American film about state power, made to warn the public, ended up inadvertently giving its adversary an idea for more effective intelligence operations. Fiction does not merely reflect reality, sometimes it quietly shapes it. 3. The massacre scene was reshot to shock. The office scene at the beginning of 3 Days of the Condor may seem like a simple introduction, but in reality, it is the key that defines the entire film. And what few people know is this: the version you see was not the first one filmed. Sidney Pollack shot this scene, once edited it fully, and submitted it to the studio. Paramount's response was clear: it was not frightening enough. They believed the audience needed to be hit immediately in the opening minutes to understand that this was not a light spy film, but a story where death could strike at any moment. Pollack was forced to reshoot the entire sequence. The second time, he changed the rhythm, and staging violence happens quickly and efficiently without warning. The gunshots are not dramatic, but cold and functional. And what follows is a terrifying silence that blankets the space. The new version achieved exactly what it needed to do. It stunned the audience. From that moment on, all of Turner's paranoia becomes completely justified. 2. Gordon Willis shot Condor like a horror film, and New York became an invisible monster. With 3 Days of the Condor, Gordon Willis pushed his speaking darkness philosophy even further than in The Godfather. Natural light is cut short, frames sink into deep shadows, letting space itself threaten the people within it. The CIA office is no longer a workplace. It feels like a trap-filled maze. Long corridors, low ceilings, blurred reflections in glass. Every step feels like entering a danger zone. Willis once said he wanted the city to look like it was closing in around Turner. That sensation is present in every scene frames, often offer no escape, placing characters at the edges while darkness occupies most of the image. New York in daylight still feels heavy. At night, it devours. This is not a glamorous spy world, but everyday horror where the familiar suddenly becomes frightening. The irony is that many studios hated this style, calling it too dark both literally and figuratively. But Redford and Pollack understood that this very discomfort is what creates Condor's suffocating paranoia. Audiences don't just see Turner being hunted, they feel the walls closing in as if they themselves are trapped inside the frame. 1. The title almost became CIA in Crisis. Before Paramount finalized the title, 3 Days of the Condor, a working title, was once proposed that was blunt to the point of being hard to believe: the CIA in crisis. The internal reaction was immediate. Studio executives feared lawsuits. Worse, they feared direct government intervention. That title was quickly buried, even though storyboards and some early press materials still carried traces of it. Try to imagine the atmosphere in 1975 if a major studio had plastered a name like that on theatre posters. In the post-Watergate era, at a moment when public trust was already cracking, a film titled CIA in Crisis would have sounded like an outright political declaration of war. What audiences never knew is that Condor almost reached theatres with its politics exposed right in the title. But instead of confronting power head-on, the film chose to hide behind metaphor, and that deliberate silence is what made it more dangerous. Not only because of what it says, but because of what it forces viewers to realize for themselves. So what about you? Which moment from 3 Days of the Condor, 1975, do you remember most? Leave a comment, and if you want to continue unlocking other deleted scenes from Hollywood's golden age, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. You will be surprised by what Hollywood has kept hidden from you for decades.